Good evening. This is the March 2015 meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals. If you'd please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please have a roll call.
Mr. Chizola is out tonight, he's absent tonight, and Mr. Haberman is taking his place as chair. I'll go through the roll now. Mr. Haberman?
Present.
Mr. Vicino?
Here.
Ms. Ferrante? Here. Mr. Soda?
Here.
Ms. Eggleston? Mr. Dubois?
Here.
Mr. Thomas?
Here.
Thank you.
I just have a few items I'd like to mention before we get started. First of all, if you folks have your phones, if you could put them on mute, it'd be appreciated. The other item I want to mention is if anybody here has believes their application is in conflict with one of the board members, if you could let me know when you come before the board, I'd appreciate it. The last thing I'd like to mention is that Mr. Du Bois is going to be a voting member tonight in place of Chairman Tosolo. With that said, we'll begin with item number one.
Item number 1, 17 Gardner Avenue, R5 zone, Rafael Amana, architect, for Kristen Blondo, owner. Vary section 3.1.4.1, rear yard setback to 10 feet 5 3/4 inches, where 20 is required, to build a new single-family home, map 27, block 455, parcel 9.
Can you give your name and address before we get started?
Yeah, my name is Rafael Amaya. I'm an architect. My office is located at 284 Racebrook Road in Orange. And I'm here tonight on behalf of Ms. Kristen Blando and Ms. Bethany Biondi. The residence was located on 17 Gardner Avenue in Milford. If you had a chance to visit the site, it's no longer there. As a result of her house being flooded during Superstorm Sandy on October 22nd, 2012, the house, whatever was left of it, had to be demolished and removed. Accordingly, we're proposing a house which is 804 square feet, 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom ranch, just like the original one, matching not only in size but also in appearance, except it will be elevated to comply with the new requirements. We based our design on the assessment sheet and pictures which Emmeline Harrigan furnished. We're hereby requesting a variance from the zoning regulation for the rear yard, reduced from 20 feet to 10'4". This is required because the reduced size of the lot and proportions present a hardship. The lot is 3,737 square feet versus the required 5,000 square feet for an R5 zone. Since all other zoning requirements are being satisfied, we're requesting from the board tonight, granting us this variance needed to build this house. That's basically it.
So basically, the house is be about the same footprint as the previous house.
Correct.
So you would still you're still encroaching on the setback in the rear, the first house.
I believe the original house was it had to be encroaching because, as you saw, the buildable area was you couldn't fit that house in that lot without encroaching. So we were basically repeating what was there before, except obviously, like I said, elevated.
Any questions from the board members?
It just looks like you're just orienting the house in a different portion of the lot. I mean, like we say, we see an endpoint that's right at the rear yard setback at the same level where you're currently building. So, is that correct?
Yeah, I do not know exactly where the original house was. We at one point picked up a site plan that I think depicted the house, or what was left of it, skewed completely in an angle with the with the setbacks,
Okay, thanks.
not parallel to the setbacks in any, which is what we're proposing tonight.
Any other questions? Is there anybody here who'd like to speak in favor of this application? Is there anybody present who would like to speak in opposition to this application? Seeing none, this hearing is closed. Thank you very much.
Somebody must have left some glasses here, just so you know. Okay.
Discussion?
I like it. I like that it's squared off against the road. My concern when looking at it was the square footage of the proposal versus the existing house or the previously existing house, and it's the same. And as we've all mentioned, the setback infringement was pre-existing as well, so I don't have a problem with this.
Any other comments?
They've squared the house up on the lot, so now you only need the one variance, so I think it's a good plan.
There's no other comments. I can have a motion, please.
Make a motion to approve. The approval is based on the,
We need a second first.
Second?
the approval is based on the shallow depth of the lot, and the rear setback is what he's asking for.
Can I have a vote then? Mr. Du Bois?
I'm with the motion.
Conte?
With the motion.
Mr. Fasino?
With the motion.
Mr. Soto?
With the motion.
Motion passes. Item number 2.
Item number 2, 158 Hillside Avenue, R5 zone. Gernot Bruckner, agent for Emily Gilmore, owner. Vary section 3-1-4-1, south side yard setback to 6 feet, .34, where 10 required, to build a new single-family home. Map 59, block 736, parcel 5.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is Gernot Bruckner, Gernot Bruckner, residing at 162 Hillside Avenue, Milford, Connecticut. I am the agent for Emily Gilmore, who is the owner of 158 Hillside. We are before the board today to respectfully request a side yard setback variance at the southern property line to 6.43 feet, where 10 feet is required in order to construct a new single-family dwelling. The building lot is in the R5 zoning district, which stipulates a minimum lot width of 50 feet. As indicated on the submitted survey, the width of the lot at Hillside Avenue is 35 feet. The odd-shaped narrow lot is therefore legally non-conforming in terms of its width, which constitutes our unusual hardship. The proposed elevated design of about 2,200 square feet, 3-bedroom home, responds to the challenges of the odd-shaped narrow lot, with a rear-facing side-by-side layout of 2 bedrooms. You can take a look at that by looking at the floor plans that have been submitted. The width of those 2 bedrooms determines the overall width of the structure. At 10 foot 4 inches, we kept the width of the bedrooms to an absolute minimum in order to keep the required side yard setback variance to an absolute minimum. Appreciate the opportunity to present to the board. Thank you very much.
Any questions? So you're looking for a small variance on one side of the
One side
property,
only,
right?
yes.
Yeah, you're able to keep the
Conforming
setback
to
on
everything else.
one. Okay. One more time, any questions from the board? No? Is there anybody here who would like to speak in favor of this application? Is there anybody present who would like to speak in opposition of this application? Seeing none, this hearing is closed. Thank you very much. I'd like to open up for discussion.
So the lot clearly has a hardship because it has only 35 feet in width and The zone requires 50. You know, they're putting a 22-foot wide house on there. I think that's as small as they can go. It looks fine to me. I don't have a problem with it.
I agree. Okay, hearing none, could I have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Second?
Second.
Reason for the approval is the hardship is the narrowness of the lot in regards to the zoning requirements, and I'd like to base this application solely on the survey presented before us today.
Can I have a vote? Mr. Du Bois?
With the motion.
Ms. Ferrante?
With the motion.
Mr. Pacino?
With the motion.
Mr. Soda?
With the motion.
And I'm with motion, it passes. Just a brief announcement.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. A brief announcement. I'm going to have to recuse myself for items 3, 4, and 5. In my place, Mr. Facino will be the acting chair, and Mr. Du Bois will be reading into the record as the secretary. And the fifth voting member will be Mr. Thomas.
Item number 3, 0 Tanglewood Circle, RA, cluster down to R18, Thomas Lynch, Esquire, attorney for April Culver, owner, vary section 3.1.4.1 to 30 feet, where 40 feet required to build a single-family home, map 122, block 904, parcel 5N.
Welcome, Attorney Lynch.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Just for the record, my name is Thomas Lynch. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Lynch, Trimbicki, and Boynton, and my office is located here in Milford at 63 Cherry Street. And I'm here again tonight representing April Culver, the owner of these two properties, items number 3 and 4 on your agenda. And as we did at the December meeting, Mr. Chairman, I would ask that we consider both of these at the same time. Both lots contain the same issue. I'll be making the same arguments for hardship for both of them. So as we did at the December meeting, I'd ask that we go forward on that basis.
Yep, that's fine, thank you.
And as I had also mentioned to Mr. Harris in speaking to him this afternoon, to make my presentation as brief as possible, I'd like to have the full minutes in the transcript of the December 9th, 2014 hearing incorporated as part of the record for tonight's hearing. All of the comments that I made to you relative to these two parcels are germane again, and I will be highlighting the difference between the two applications, but I would ask that the entire minutes and the verbatim transcript ultimately be included in the record for this hearing.
Meg?
Hi, Tom, I just wanted to note that there's typically no actual verbatim transcript created unless there's litigation involved, so the minutes could be incorporated per this discussion in their entirety, but we don't have a transcript per se.
And I understand that, but I'm trying to just note for the record that in the event that there is further action after tonight, I'd ask that at that point, then the verbatim transcript from the prior hearing be included.
Mr. Chairman, we do have the DVD though, right? Yeah, okay.
Okay?
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. Attorney Lynch, I think that's great. I appreciate your helping us by keeping your testimony to a minimum. We'll
Right,
ask.
it was a long meeting that night, and actually that includes all the comments that the interested neighbors made, so that
Correct.
would then all be included in the record for this hearing.
Yep, and that's what I wanted to emphasize as well, is that all the testimony from both sides for that hearing, for those two hearings, will be incorporated into the minutes in this one. So we ask that as we move forward, that all participants just provide new testimony, and we'll be enforcing that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well then, I'm going to be very brief. At the December meeting, we went into great lengths talking about the legal hardship that exists on these two parcels. I made the argument that the existence of the wetlands on the property necessitated moving the two residences closer to Tanglewood Circle. The application presented to you in December asked for a 20-foot setback off of Tanglewood, and your board saw it fit at last month's meeting to deny without prejudice the application. Specifically, Bill and Sarah had made mention of compromising a 30-foot setback, and that's what we've done tonight. We've come before you with revised plans showing a 30-foot setback off of Tanglewood, but again, and Bill had raised a very good point at the prior public hearing, the deed line is actually some 10 feet off of the improved roadway of Tanglewood. So in essence now, we have the 10-foot area between the deed line and the improved roadway, the city right-of-way, as well as the 30-foot setback from the deed line. So these houses now, as you drive down Tanglewood Circle, would in fact be 40 feet back from the improved highway. We have also reduced the footprint for the two residences on Lot 5N. The prior footprint called for a residence to be constructed 35 feet by 50 feet. Tonight's proposal before you shows a footprint for a residence 32 feet by 50 feet. And on parcel 5P, the prior residence was shown as being 35 feet by 70 feet. This proposal before you tonight has reduced that now to a footprint of 32 feet by 64 feet. The result of this will have a slight increase in the fill. We discussed things with Mary Rose Palumbo, our wetlands agency officer. She feels that if we receive these variances, it'll show the wetlands agency that we have acted in good faith to come up with a reasonable and prudent alternative to filling the wetlands to a greater extent. So if the board sees fit to grant these applications tonight, we would then go forward to the wetlands agency, pursue those applications. Again, public comment would be certainly elicited, and that's a presentation and argument for another day. So with that said, I just want to summarize again for the record that the wetlands do constitute a legal hardship. I felt in December that we had made a proper argument to you asking for the variances. I appreciate, and my client appreciates, the comments that the board made at that time to try to work with the neighbors and seek a middle ground here, and we've done so. We've acted in good faith to come before you with a revised plan that we hope that you will approve. Other than that, I have no further comments.
Questions for Mr. Lynch from the board? Mr. Soto.
Mr. Lynch, are these, what style houses are these, colonials or ranches?
I think they're going to be colonials.
Okay.
There's no floor plans designed as of yet,
Okay.
but I think it's envisioned to be colonials.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions for Attorney Lynch from the board? Okay, thank you, Attorney Lynch, for
Thank you.
Keeping your presentation
Thank you.
to new testimony. So at this point in time, we'll ask for anyone else speaking in favor of the application. Please step forward. Give us your name and your address, sir, when you get up there. Thank you.
Yes, my name is Joe Francetic. I live at 94 Housatonic Drive. I appreciate the time you're giving me to speak on behalf of April Culver. I've known April for...
I'm sorry, could you repeat your address and just pull the mic up? Yeah, or
Oh,
just
that's
come to
fine.
it. Thank you.
It's 94 Housatonic Drive. I've known the Capusta Culver family for 25 years. I'm mainly here for one reason, is to speak on behalf of a man who can't speak for himself because he's no longer here. That's Ed Capusta, the original person who purchased this property in the early 80s. His dream was to build a house for his wife on this property, and next to it to build a house for his daughter. Sadly to say, at age 38, he came down with kidney cancer. and that basically washed that dream away. He struggled and was fortunate enough to survive it. However, 10 years later, at 48, the cancer came back, and he was given 2 years to live. He was fortunate enough to enjoy a portion of those 2 years with his family, but eventually it did take his life. So the dream of giving the house, building a house for his wife and for his daughter diminished and evaporated. His other dream was to give this property to his children when they got married, and obviously that didn't happen because he didn't live long enough. But I know the legacy that he held in his heart was that this land would be there for his family when he wasn't there, and to help him and help them because he's no longer here to help them. I'm really only asking for some fairness on part of our side of this issue. I understand the people behind me are loyal, hardworking taxpayers of this town, just as I am, just as Mrs. Culver was, as well as her husband during his life. So please consider this facet when you make your decision. All right, this is a legacy of a man who worked all his life to help his family. He was a school teacher who worked in the inner city helping children who didn't get much help from home. So I appreciate you take these comments under consideration when you're voting on this issue. And thank you very much for my time.
Thank you. Anyone else speaking in favor of the application? Okay, at this time then we'll take individuals that are in opposition to the application, but we would like you to keep your comments to new testimony surrounding the issue, as we have introduced all of the comments from the prior hearings into the minutes. So please come forward if you have new testimony to offer towards these two items, item 3 and 4, please. Miss, your name and your address, please. You're up first. Thanks.
My name is Mary Ellen Magura. My address is 144 Tanglewood Circle. My husband just set up some pictures. I just wanted to put that out as a point. We wanted to put that as a point of reference. The last time we were here, a remark was made that we were claiming that our houses were all set back farther than the minimum 40-foot requirement. That's just a sample. We didn't want to drag pictures of 200 homes with us, obviously. That's a sample of the 5 homes right around this property, and you can see for yourself the measured setbacks on those houses. I'm going to address the introductory points. This is all new, by the way, information that we were unable to, that was unearthed after the last hearing. And we were unable, the December 9th tapes will have none of this information in it, just so that you know.
Okay.
Introductory point A, the lots simply do not support the type of construction called for in the applications. Point B, the point is not to find a way to build something, anything, regardless of impact, but to determine if these lots are capable of supporting a structure that's in harmony with the surrounding area, in keeping with the features of a neighborhood accustomed to a certain standard of quality, without inflicting permanent damage to the environment it supports, both on the property itself and downstream from where the proposed construction will take place. The conformity issue, the adjustment to the front yard setback from 20 to 30 while closer to the absolute minimum required by regulations, is clearly an admission that the proposed building plans lack the amount of setback customary for this particular section of Milford, and approaches nothing like the open space enjoyed by every other resident in the Tanglewood Circle neighborhood. This is not a trivial issue for those of us fortunate to be a part of this neighborhood and who have spent, in many cases, decades in our homes precisely because of the generous amount of space between each property and the unique combination of openness and privacy it provides. The application before you tonight requires a significant compromise in the standard to which we've become accustomed in our neighborhood, not only with respect to the front yard setbacks, but also with regard to the spacing between the proposed structures. The reasonable expectation to build needs to be balanced with the equally reasonable expectation that new structures will reflect the qualities we've come to expect and enjoy throughout our neighborhood. Finally, this project also violates Section 4.1.8 of the zoning regulations, and a variance of 4.1.8 has not been requested as part of these applications. For these reasons, we respectfully ask the board to deny these variances.
Thank you. Continuing, individuals in opposition.
Gary Davis, 137 Tanglewood Circle, Milford, adjacent to the properties in question.
Yep. Mr. Davis, if I could just state one thing for the record, and I don't think it will be a problem because, as we mentioned, we put the testimony from the past in, and we're asking just for new testimony. But there is a law within the guidelines of the hearings that says an individual can speak for 3 minutes. So we'd like to try and keep it to that length because I recognize there'll probably be a lot of people. So just please get your points across within that time period.
Okay,
Great. Thank you.
I have my comments written here. I think it would be most expedient if I read them rather than someone else.
That's fine.
Because I do support the comments of the previous speaker, and I oppose the granting of the variance for the following 3 new reasons. First, Section 9.2.2.2 of the City of Milford zoning regulations require that, and I quote, "The variance as granted by the Zoning Board of Appeals is the minimum variance that will accomplish this purpose," with the word minimum being key. This leads me to question, what is the minimum variance required for reasonable use of this land? Today, that figure is to place a home 10 feet closer to the street than is permitted by our 18 zoning regulations. At the December 2014 meeting, when this case was previously presented, that figure was 20 feet closer to the street. Both figures are arbitrary, not based on fact, and not minimum values. I say this first because the footprint of the homes, as shown on the map, is for proposed homes. There are no floor plans. There is no builder. Ms. Culver has no intention of building homes on these lots. She only wants to sell the properties. The house footprint on these plans shows a greater depth than that of nearby houses, and it strikes me that the footprint of these proposed homes has been unreasonably enlarged to give the impression of greater impact on wetlands. The actual impact on wetlands is unknown until a true and reasonable house footprint is determined. Furthermore, an application for construction has not been submitted to Inland Wetlands Agency. This means that there has been no determination of the proposed home's impact on wetlands or what minimum variance would be required. In fact, when I wrote to Mary Rose Palumbo, Milford Inland's Wetlands Compliance Officer, to ask about any needed variance anticipated for these lots, her reply was, and I quote, "I believe that I have spoken with Ms. Culver and Robert Wayway of Codispati and Associates about these parcels in the past. The advice that I give all prospective applicants is that the agency must balance the proposed work with the protection of the wetlands as outlined in the state statutes and local agency regulations." She gave no specific number as to what kind of setback or variance would be required. Let me add that in balancing the proposed work, Ms. Palumbo explained to me that it is possible to fill some wetlands if other wetlands are created. Again, since this property has not been reviewed by Inland Wetlands, no determination of the feasibility of doing this has been made. This leads to my second point, which is to address the lot size. If you look at the map Attorney Lynch has provided for Lot 28, also known as 5N, you will note that its total site area is 22,298 square feet. You will also note in the box titled Minimum Lot and Building Requirements that this lot is in Zone RA clustered to R30 area. You might wonder, why is there a lot 22,298 square feet in an area zoned for a minimum of 30,000 square feet? The simple answer is that this was done to enlarge the adjoining Lot 29 in order to accommodate space for Lot 29's septic system. And it's worth noting that this change was just recorded on the city records in December 2014. This redistribution of area between the lots, which was requested by Ms. Culver and approved by Planning and Zoning, unfortunately ignored the state of Connecticut's recommendation to the Milford Health Department in a letter dated May 2nd, 1977, that lots in this subdivision be clustered to 1, a minimum of 40,000 square feet, and 2, and again I quote, it might be possible to reduce the lot size to 30,000 square feet minimum as long as all of the unsuitable portions of the land, such as wetlands, are excluded. I believe that the claimed wetland hardship for Lot 28 was self-inflicted by the redistribution of lot area, and that due diligence on the part of the applicant would have revealed these concerns. I bring this up because the notes of Section 8-6, Powers and Duties of Board of Appeals in the State of Connecticut Planning and Zoning Statutes state, variance denied since hardship was of plaintiff's own making, and also, when claimed hardship arises because of actions of applicant, board is without power to grant variance. The final brief point I would like to make references the letter that Ms. Culver submitted to the Zoning Board of Appeals at the December 2014 meeting, in which she ended the letter with, I quote, "My hope was that the lots would help me financially in the future when I retired," end quote. Again, notes in Section 8-6 state, financial loss or hardship is not sufficient reason for granting variance, and also, board can grant variance for reasons stated in this section. Mere financial gain to applicant is not sufficient. In summary, the Zoning Board of Appeals must deny this request for a variance because, one, we do not know the minimum variance required to build homes on the lots, nor have we considered the impact of public sewers eventually coming to Tanglewood Circle. Two, the hardship for Lot 28 is of the applicant's own making. And three, financial loss is not a reason to grant a variance. Thank you. Any questions?
Any questions?
I have copies of this. Who would I?
Sure, please bring them up. Yep. Yep. Just one? For the minutes? Yep. Yep, and I'll take one. Thank you. Anyone else speaking in opposition with new testimony to enter in?
Good evening. My name is Sharon Clark, and I live at 108 Tanglewood Circle. We have some handouts for the board. If
Sure.
we could
Please bring those
distribute
up.
some?
Sure.
Okay.
This is a rather large package, so I just remind you, let's keep it to 3 to 5 minutes, okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
I also have a, my written proposal here. While it may be the case that the applicant has received conditional approval from the Board of Health regarding the septic system, there appears to be inconsistencies between the site plan submitted to the Board of Health and the site plan submitted to the Zoning Board of Appeals. And for that reason, it is our contention that the applications before you should be denied unless and until these discrepancies can be resolved. More specifically, the application submitted by the property owner on July 30th, 2014 to the Health Department, it calls for a 40-foot setback from the street to each proposed building. It was on the basis of these plans that the Health Department granted its conditional approval for the septic systems. And it is on the basis of this plan that the owner has sought to move forward with the variances before you tonight. As you can see, the applications are requesting a variance, as we've been told before, for a 40-foot front yard setback, which is clearly inconsistent with the plan submitted to the Health Department, which called for a 40-foot setback. It's not clear how this inconsistency came about, but regardless of the reasons why, we are asking the board to deny these variances pending the submission of more. We need more accurate septic system plans by the property owner, consistent with requested zoning variances, along with their approval by the Health Department. A copy of the Department of Health policy on soil testing is included in the handouts. It's on paragraph A5. It states, in part, that no soil testing shall be conducted during the months of July, August, and September. Also in the handout is documentation regarding the timing of the percolation or the perk test performed on these properties in support of the septic system plans. It indicates that soil testing was conducted during the month of July, which is, well, you could see is clearly contrary to the policy of the Milford Department of Health regarding such tests. Because of all of these apparent discrepancies and inconsistencies in the septic system plans submitted to the Board of Health and the Zoning Board of Appeals, as well as our concerns over the potentially improper application of policy regarding the perk tests used as the basis for the septic systems, we respectfully ask that the board deny the applications before you tonight until these questions are resolved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I need to add that the viability of a septic system is not before you tonight. That's not in your purview. The only thing before you tonight is the front yard setback.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Is there anyone else speaking in opposition of the application with new information to bring before the board?
Yep. Good evening. My name is Don Leidickson. I live at 173 Tanglewood Circle, adjacent to these properties in question. At the last hearing in February, when the original applications were denied by this board, several specific and very telling comments were made by members of the board with regards to the proposed building footprints in terms of both their size in relation to the lots and the potential impact that they would have on the wetlands that these properties support. The concern of the board was well-founded. The attempt to force multiple structures into a property that's barely able to support one single-family home has resulted in a situation in which a significant amount of relative space must be reserved for the proposed buildings. The effort put forth in the latest application to remedy these problems is ineffective at best and results in even greater environmental impact to this space. I'll call your attention, if you will, to the orange tab that's labeled environmental in the handouts that we provided. Behind this tab, I'll tell you what's there and then I'll summarize for you. There are 4 copies of the applications submitted by Attorney Lynch. The first 2 are the revised applications before you tonight, 1 for each lot. The second 2 are the original applications the board denied last month. I've highlighted 2 pieces of information for you on each copy. One is the total lot coverage. The other is the amount of wetlands to be filled in as a result of this proposed construction. And all of the information I'm about to discuss is also summarized for you in a single page in the handout, if you'll refer to it, behind this tab. As you can see, based on the applicant's information, total lot coverage has now been reduced by only 0.6% in Lot 29, which was from 9.2 to 8.6, and by only 0.2% in Lot 28, from 13.2 to 13%. This is barely enough to be able to call this a reduction and still keep a straight face. The impact on existing wetlands is even worse. And in fact, the amount of wetlands, as Mr. Lynch alluded to earlier, the amount of wetlands destroyed in each lot actually increases compared to the application denied by this board in February. As you can see, an additional 361 square feet of wetlands is filled in Lot 29, which when combined with the wetlands already designated for destruction, results in a permanent loss of approximately 16% of all the wetlands in Lot 29. The situation for Lot 28 is even worse. An additional 396 square feet of wetlands is filled in, which when combined with the wetlands already designated for construction, results in a permanent loss of approximately 21% of all the wetlands in Lot 28. And these numbers don't include an additional 1,100 square feet of wetlands that are quote-unquote temporarily disrupted by the installation of the network of force mains and septic systems. One additional observation I want to make for you right now. As you can see in the tab that I've given you, the areas of the wetlands in the original applications were clearly marked in the Codis Bodie survey maps. The wetlands were hashed out. You could obviously see where they are. However, the wetlands have mysteriously disappeared in the new survey maps, or at the very least are now much harder to make out. And it's not clear to me whether this change was just an oversight or whether it was done really in an attempt to downplay the extent of the wetlands on these properties and the detrimental impact that the proposed new construction would have on them. I think this is hardly the effort that the board seemed to have in mind when it denied these variances back in February, and underscores a fundamental underlying issue that these lots simply can't support the kind of construction called for in the applications before you without completely disregarding the disruption that it would have, not only to the topography of the lots and the surrounding properties, but on the wetlands they support, both on the property and downstream from any proposed activity. On a personal note, I'll close by just saying that my wife and I are very concerned about the impact that this construction will have directly on our property, which is located next to Lot 28. If you're familiar with the area, our in-ground pool, which is installed when our house was built back in 1986, is in the direct path of any runoff diverted by the blasting, grading, and filling that will almost certainly occur in order to accommodate an engineered septic system and the structures that are proposed for this lot. Because of the close proximity of our lines, we're afraid that the plans before you will result in an extremely hazardous situation, as groundwater that used to be absorbed or run off naturally will be instead redirected under the foundation of the pool, rendering it unstable and dangerous. Now, I know that normally the board doesn't engage in hypotheticals. I realize that. But nevertheless, I believe we have an equally reasonable expectation to the quiet enjoyment of our property as well. And if these plans are allowed to move forward as is, without the imposition of additional safeguards and conditions, we'll have no choice but to seek some sort of injunctive relief when, as we believe, the inevitable, and I would submit entirely avoidable, damage occurs to our properties. And for these reasons, I respectfully ask the board to deny these variances. Thanks.
Thank you for your comments.
Mr. Chairman, I have to add
Mr.
again
Harris.
that any effect on the wetlands is not the purview of this board. It's the purview of the Inland Wetlands Board only.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Other individuals speaking in opposition to the application with new testimony, please step forward.
Hi, I'm Karen Sineski. I live at 150 Tanglewood Circle. What I'd like to do tonight is address the issues that were pointed out at our last hearing, both the financial hardship and the prior knowledge aspect. We certainly can sympathize with Mrs. Culver, and as Mr. Francetic pointed out to you, he is her son-in-law, and we felt very badly that she wanted to build her dream home. But our contention is that while the circumstances described in Mrs. Culver's letter were unfortunate, they don't necessarily present the entire picture regarding the financial hardship that was conveyed, nor whether they influenced the decision by the applicant to put the properties up for sale. If you would turn to tab number 5, there is a copy of the original letter that was submitted at the last hearing, and a photograph and a brief description of the property currently occupied by the applicant in Vero Beach, Florida. It's a beautiful home. It's probably worth twice what any of our homes are worth. And we are so happy that she's been able to finally, as her son-in-law pointed out, she wanted to have a dream home built. Well, Ed can be proud because his wife did build a dream home and is living in it right now. But financial necessity does not, according to the law, it is not a compelling reason for putting the Tanglewood Circle properties up for sale, as the letter suggests. And based upon the evidence presented, any attempt to influence the board along these lines seems to be misplaced at best. The very last sentence of the board's definition of hardship states, quote, "The hardship cannot be self-created," end quote. Mr. Davis elaborated on that, It is quite evident that the property owners realized at the time of the purchase these properties contained wetlands and would have an issue when it came to building. And what I'd like to do, in your back packet, you have a copy of the original deed, which states very clearly, riparian rights in and to the brook running through the premise as same may affect lot 28 and 29 delineated on the map. And I know we're not addressing wetlands, but we are addressing the prior knowledge issue. And again, Mrs. Culver, as we know, was a licensed realtor. She was great. She trained me back in 1987. She was the trainer for Beasley Company. And as a realtor, Ms. Culver does have an additional responsibility. If you were to refer, I will give you a copy, the Code of Ethics for Realtors. Any realtor is obligated under the Code of Ethics, even when acting as a principal in a real estate transaction. They must be forthright and honest about the value of their property, and they must also remain bound to the obligation even when dealing among themselves. And in Article 2 of the Code of Ethics, it says, realtors shall avoid exaggeration, misrepresentation, or concealment of personal facts relating to the property in a transaction.
Ms. Sineski, how does this connect? Can you tie that back for me?
I certainly can. She had prior knowledge what she was buying. And if she, at that time, and I will go to, she had the opportunity, when she realized that this was not a buildable property, she would have then had the opportunity to sell it back to Brooklyn Builders, have her $100,000 purchase price be refunded to her, and now she even has the right, under errors and omissions, she still could go back to Brooklyn Builders and get her money back.
Okay. Do you have something else to add?
One last thing. I don't think I've had 3 minutes yet.
You have, ma'am, but that's
okay. All right. I'll summarize. The owner gambled. She heard rumors in the neighborhood that sewers were coming in, and as we know, this was the wrong decision to buy, and instead they should have gotten their money back, and we wouldn't be here tonight. We wouldn't be wasting everyone's time. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else speaking in opposition? And I don't think we need to revisit the wetlands anymore because, as we've talked, that's not something that this board is considering. New testimony in relation to items 3 and 4 in opposition. Please come forward.
Good evening. My name's John Shanley, 188 Tanglewood Circle. My biggest concern here is that when the town, the city of Milford, rezoned this property up there from 1 acre zoning to the cluster zoning, it really became at that point in time a design neighborhood. And we bought into a design neighborhood, similar to what you did to Lexington Green, what the town did to Great River. And those setbacks were bought in, and everybody agreed to that. So I'm kind of worried about setting a precedent here on design neighborhoods where just for these lots, it's 30 feet back or whatever the board decides to grant. Hopefully it denies the application. But what happens to my other neighborhoods now? So if someone wanted to put a sunroom in front of their house and bring that up to 30 feet, is that what I'm facing now? Would the board grant something like that to Great River where the property's right up to, like, I think it's 10 or 20 feet from the sidewalk there? Would those design neighborhoods, would someone be able to come to the board and say, well, you granted this, now I want to put a sunroom up, so it's only 5 feet from the neighbor? But that's what I'm concerned about, is the precedent of changing design neighborhoods that we all invested in, the city as well as the property owners. And that's my biggest concern. I hope you deny the application. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else speaking in opposition with new testimony for these two cases?
Hi, my name is Diane Leidickson. I live right next door to the properties. I live at 173 Tanglewood Circle.
Sure. Can you bring that mic a little bit closer to you, ma'am?
Sure.
Thanks.
And I am opposed
can we ask you to repeat your name? I'm sorry, but just repeat
Diane
your name.
Leidickson.
Thank you.
I live right next door to the lots, and I'm opposed to these variances for the reasons that have already been stated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. I'm Joan Caginello. I live at 17 Westminster Court, and my property is adjacent to the property, but from the rear lot. I'm just saying that I am also opposed to this, this application for all of the reasons that have been cited already. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Other individuals in opposition that would like to offer new testimony?
My name is Pat Campanaro. I live at 105 Tanglewood Circle, and for all the reasons that were stated, I oppose the variance. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Anyone else speaking in opposition?
Karen Smith, 16 Westminster Court, and I oppose this application for all the reasons that's already been stated. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Anyone else speaking in opposition?
Good evening. My name's John Mudrick. I'm at 158 Tanglewood Circle, and I just want to say that I'm in opposition to this for all the reasons above as well. It doesn't fit the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening. My name is Bill Caginello, reside at 17 Westminster Court. I oppose all the comments that have been made that we're trying to get through tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else speaking in opposition?
Hi, my name is Joe Badowski. I live at 200 Tanglewood Circle, and I'm also opposed to the application of the variances and support my neighbor's views regarding this matter. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Steve Varholak. I live at 41 Old Country Lane, and I'm in agreement with the prior speakers in opposing the variance. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else that would like to speak in opposition, please continue to come on up. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for your time. My name is Mimi Mudrick. I live at 158 Tanglewood Circle, and I'm opposed to this variance being granted for all the previous stated reasons this evening, the New Testament. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Continue to come forward, please. You can even line up if you'd like. That's dead serious. That's fine.
Tina Gage, 210 Tanglewood Circle. My husband Tyrone is not here with me, but he also opposes, as well as I do, the variances requested.
My name is Sharon Betts, and I live at 192 Tanglewood Circle, and I also oppose the variance for all the reasons listed, and so does my husband George. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak in opposition to this hearing? Okay. Attorney Lynch, you have a lot to consider within your rebuttal, I'm sure, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, to address the question that Mr. Davis had raised, or the issue that he had raised, back in 1989, there was a lot line adjustment that was approved by the Planning and Zoning Board, realigning the boundary line between lots number 28 and 29 on the Rustic Acres subdivision map. It was approved by the Planning and Zoning Board, so we can't rewrite history. I went over this with Mr. Harris this morning, and again, even though one of the lots is 22,000 square feet, the Planning and Zoning Board approved that. They felt that the combination of the two lots, changing the lot line as they did to allow for the septic systems, was permissible. They granted it. These are two legal building lots, so there's no question about that. Secondly, Ms. Clark had raised the issue of the Board of Health approval, and that there's a discrepancy between the application that was presented to the Board of Health. There's no discrepancy. Mr. Weiwei testified at the December 9th meeting that when you submit an application to the Board of Health for the septic plan approval, you show the house at the legal setbacks. But whether these two houses are 20 feet, 30 feet, 40 feet from the street line or the city right-of-way on Tanglewood Circle, it has no bearing on the septic plan. I submitted to the board back on December a packet of exhibits. Item number 2 in that packet of exhibits was the approval from the Board of Health in June of 2014. So there's no question these plans were approved. There's no discrepancy. When you show the layout for the Board of Health application, you show the application with the legal setback as required by the zoning regulations. What we're doing tonight is asking for a variance of that setback to allow minimal infringement upon the wetlands. We're not here tonight arguing the wetlands. As I concluded in my comments, that's an argument and a presentation to a different agency for a later date. So the neighbors certainly can bring those comments, as I'm sure they will, to the Wetlands Agency, and it'll be the decision of that agency to act accordingly. Some of the other comments, personal in nature to Ms. Culver, I don't think they warrant any response from me. Thank you.
Okay, questions for Mr. Lynch? Okay. With no questions for Mr. Lynch, then we consider these 2 items within the hearing closed, and we'll open it for open discussion amongst the board. So I'm curious towards your thoughts. Who wants to start us off?
I think that all the residents made some very compelling arguments, but as Mr. Harris stated, many of it is not within our jurisdiction tonight. It's just the front yard setback and the 30 feet plus the 10 feet from the road. That's not 40 feet from the property line, but it is a help, and that's the focus.
I mean, I think that's a very legitimate point. We asked them to consider the setback when we denied the application previously, and they've done that. They also have reduced the footprint of the house, although I do see some interesting dimensions off of that when you consider some of the other testimony that's presented to us. Other thoughts? Soda.
Well, we asked them to, make some adjustments, and I think they did, and I'm kind of happy with what they've done. I know we don't have any consideration on the wetlands. We can't even look at that. We can't look at financial hardship or anything like that. And we're only here to look at the front yard setback. I mean, anything with wetlands, you guys have to deal with wetlands on that stuff, so I don't really have a problem with this.
Other comments from the board? I mean, I agree. I think that they made concessions, and that there certainly will be a day to once again reconsider, but in the correct, appropriate format, the wetlands issue. I think the lot does have a legal hardship, and I think that has been stated. It meets the requirements of the zoning laws that Milford has in place here. Other comments? If there are no comments, then we'll give a minute to reflect upon what type of motion would like to be made.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Harris.
Any motion will have to have 2 separate votes, one for item 3, the other for item 4.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
I do have a question. Anything we decide here tonight, if we decide to, any proposal still has to go to other commissions, correct? It's not a guarantee that there will be
Correct.
a house built.
Should the board approve this, it still needs wetlands approval,
Right.
and it will need planning and zoning approval.
So we're the first step along the path. Other comments, or else, as Chairman Tizzola says, we need a motion.
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
The approval is based on the hardship of the wetlands and based on the survey by Codispati and Associates.
Mr. Soto, this is for item number 3, correct?
Yes, item number 3.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on item number 3. We'll call it Mr. Soda,
In favor.
Ms. Ferrante,
With the motion.
Mr. Dubois,
With the motion.
Mr. Thomas,
With the motion.
and I am with the motion. It passes unanimously. All right, so we need a motion for item number 4. Considering in all the points that were made originally, everything still incorporated, same items, all in testimony. So a motion for that one, please?
I make a motion to approve item number 4.
Second the motion again.
Okay, we have a motion and we have a second on item number 4 in tonight's agenda. We'll call for the vote. Mr. Soda,
With the vote, with the motion.
Ms. Ferrante,
With the motion.
Mr. Dubois,
With the motion.
Mr. Thomas,
With the motion.
and I'm with the motion. It passes unanimously.
Mr. Chairman, it's been suggested that we should take a 5-minute break at 8 o'clock for the
For the
person who
tapes?
does the recording can
For
do
the
some
technical
changeover.
tapes? Okay, then we'll recess for 5 minutes to allow the logistics to be taken care of. Thank you. Okay, we're going to get started, so if everyone can take their seats, and I will ask Mr. Dubois to read in item number 5, so we will start it up.
Item number 5, 33 Chetwood Street, R5 zone, Laura Downs, owner, various section 3.1.4.1, east side yard setback to 4 feet where 5 feet required, west side yard setback to 9 feet where 10 feet required, rear yard setback to 9.1 feet where 20 feet required, section 4.1.4, front deck projection to 4.3 feet where 8 feet permitted, west deck projection to 1 foot where 8 foot permitted to build single-family home, map 29, block 456, parcel 47.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and Board. I'm glad to be back before you tonight. Thank you for your comments last month and things that you asked us to consider. I do believe we've demonstrated our willingness to consider those comments. We've reduced the lot coverage and the building coverage to the maximum percentage. Therefore, we're not requesting variances on those 2 items. We have reduced the width of the house from 24 feet to 22 feet, again, which has allowed us to reduce the lot coverage. And we've actually reduced the number of variances that we're bringing before you this evening. So I'm hoping that the modifications that we've made meet with your approval. Oh, Laura Downs, 79 Maple Street.
That was my bad. Thank you for correcting that. Okay, so you've certainly reduced some of the items that you came before us last time. Anything else that you'd like to add?
I think we've demonstrated our willingness. We really would like to build our home on that lot. And we think the reductions that we've made will allow us to both have the off-street parking and enclosed stairway. We've also reduced the size of the decks. So I think it conforms with the neighborhood, and hopefully you will approve. Thank you.
Okay, questions from the board for the applicant? Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, is there anyone else speaking in favor of this application? Okay. Is there anyone opposed to this application? Now would be the time to come up. Okay, so seeing none, that's great. Then this hearing is closed and we'll start discussion. Okay, guys, what do we think? Mr. Soda?
Well, I think she took our comments into consideration. She reduced the size of the house and the footprint, so I'm happy with it.
Yep, I mean, I agree as well. I mean, I had an opportunity, as I'm sure the rest of the board did as well, to look over and do the comparison between what was asked for previously and what's before us tonight, and she walked us through it as well. So I appreciate the efforts made, and I feel that it's a good application.
Yeah, there's definitely a reduction in the number of requests here, and as I recall, last time I believe lot coverage was the biggest sticking point, so it's nice to see that that has been eliminated. It is a small lot, so I think it's a good compromise.
Yeah, I think, Ms. Ferrante, you're absolutely right what you said. I mean, that was the one that was a big sticking point for us, and to totally eliminate that as even a variance request was very thoughtful. So other comments, or we need a motion?
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
Approval is based on the hardship of the narrowness of the lot. And also per the survey from, what was it?
Survey presented in the package, right?
Correct.
Cool. Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Thank you very much for that. And so we'll do the vote. Mr. Thomas.
With the motion.
Mr. Dubois.
With the motion.
Ms. Ferrante.
With the motion.
Mr. Soda.
With the motion.
And I'm with the motion. It passes unanimously. Thank you. We're going to get our acting chairman back in here so that the stand-in chairman can go back to the secretary role. So just bear with us for a moment. Or maybe not. No, we'll get him in 1 sec. Okay.
Just carry on and do the next item.
Yeah. We're going to check one spot. Mr. Haberman. Yep. Okay, welcome back, sir. Before we continue with business, I'd just like to thank Mr. Thomas for sitting in on those 3 hearings. That was great. And
You got it.
I kick it back to Mr. Haberman.
Very much. Item number 6.
All right. Item number 6, 45 Cooper Avenue, R5 zone, Albert Straza, Esquire attorney for Aviel Suarez and Morena Mitas, owners, vary section 3-1-4-1, west side yard setback to 5 feet where 10 required to build a new single-family home, map 59, block 736, parcel 5.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. I'm Albert Straza. My office is located at 8883 Black Rock Turnpike in Fairfield. I represent Mr. Aviel Suarez and Ms. Marina Midas. the fee owners of 45 Cooper Avenue in their variance application as to the west side yard requirements pursuant to Section 3-1-4-1 of the Milford zoning regulations to permit the construction of a new single-family dwelling in the R5 zone. The subject parcel is a 30-foot wide lot where 50 is required, improved with an existing single-family dwelling that is currently non-conforming as the side yard setbacks on both the west and east elevations. A hardship exists due to the narrow width of the lot. Please note that the applicants have purchased this home with the intention of building their principal place of residence. They have put a lot of thought into the design, the structural engineering, the architecture, and the aesthetics of the proposed dwelling. In addition, the existing structure does not meet current FEMA height requirements, and the proposed structure shall exceed the FEMA height requirements by about 2 feet while remaining 5 feet below the maximum permitted height requirements in the zone. The requested variance will in fact reduce the existing nonconforming as to side yard setbacks 2 feet on the east and 1.8 feet at the west elevation. It will not adversely impact the surrounding parcels, nor will such a variance permit construction inconsistent with similarly situated parcels in the neighborhood. Therefore, we feel that the granting of said variance is justified due to the hardships as illustrated and would not result in a negative change in the neighborhood. I'd like to thank you for your time and consideration. Do you have any questions?
Any questions from the board?
Okay.
So
Thank you very
you're
much.
actually reducing the nonconformity a little bit.
Yeah, that's
prior
it.
to that. Good.
Thank you very much.
Is there anybody here who'd like to speak in favor of this application? Is anybody here who'd like to speak in opposition to this application? This hearing is closed. Any discussion? I personally don't see a problem with it. It's reducing the existing nonconformity and elevating the house, so I don't see a personal problem with it at all. Mr.
No, I don't see any problem at all. I mean, they've centered in the lot, and you can't build much more than a, 20-foot wide house. That's pretty small, so they've done a good job on it.
Good. So, without any more comment,
Yep, no, I just think that they did everything they could to minimize the number of nonconformities, so I'd like to make a motion to approve.
second?
Okay, reason for the approval is,
Wait, I can't say.
Oh, you
I'm
can't
asking
second,
for
can
a
you?
second.
Second.
thank you. Reason for the approval is because they've reduced nonconformities within the lot. It is a narrow lot, and I approve based on the survey presented for us today.
Can I have a vote, Mr. DuBois?
With the motion.
Ferrante?
With the motion.
With the motion.
Mr. Soto?
With the motion.
And I'm with motion. It passes unanimously. All right, item number 7.
Item number 7, 44 Greenfield Road, which is in an R7.5 zone. Richard Pizelli, agent for Selena Pizelli and Sean Filkins, owners. Vary section 3.1.4.1, north side yard setback to 2.8 feet where 5 is required to connect a detached garage to the house via new enclosed breezeway. Map 59, block 736, parcel 5.
I can have your name and address. Then you can
Yeah,
proceed.
good evening, Board and Chairman. My name's Richard Pacelli. I reside at 201 West Main Street in Milford, and I have a few drawings, if I can hand them out, it's possible.
Thank you. Good.
Good evening. I'm looking to, my daughter and my son-in-law are looking to attach a breezeway to the garage which will make the garage non-conforming. At the original build back in the late 50s, early 60s, the garage was conforming. Now that we're going to make an attachment, it will not conform. It'll be non-conforming now. So if we could get this done, it would be the right thing to do. Thank you.
Are you are reconstructing the garage at all, or are you just attaching?
Excuse me?
Are you reconstructing the garage at all?
We're going to use the existing one that's there.
It's there?
Yeah.
And you're just attaching a breezeway?
We're attaching a breezeway, a 10-foot, I think it's 10
10
by
right.
20, 22-foot breezeway. to
Nothing,
the
it's just a breezeway, it's not a...
Breezeway.
Not an addition or anything like that, not a... Get what from the...
From the house, from
To
the
the
existing house, it's going to go out to the existing garage. We are going to change the roof line on the garage so I can make the attachment on a 20-foot where it's only 12 feet now on the garage. So when we make the attachment, we're going to have some space upstairs in the garage, so we're going to use that for storage or whatever we need to do upstairs there presently.
Any questions from the board? And is there anybody here who'd like to speak in favor of this application? Is there anyone present who'd like to speak in opposition to this application? Seeing none, the hearing's closed. Discussion?
I think the important point with the application is that the garage was already there, Mr. Chairman, and so obviously by connecting it to the residents, then now they are required to meet the setback requirements. But I'm happy to hear that it's going to remain the same size, so that puts any concern that I had at bay.
Anybody else?
I mean, in practicality, if you're standing there, there's already a structure that close to the property line, so it's, I mean, all of the proposed construction is happening within the property. It's not towards the edge, so it's already there. I mean, it's already.
Can I have a motion then?
I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Second? Anybody like second?
Second.
Okay, can we have a...
So the motion is based on the survey that was presented before us, which, as was mentioned and is depicted in the survey, it's not enlarging the garage in any way, although we do understand that there'll be storage space above. But I based this approval on that survey, and we're not increasing or encroaching any further on the setbacks of any of the other properties that it abuts. It's just simply now, because we're attaching the garage to the house, that we need to reconfirm this.
I have a vote. Mr. DuBois?
With the motion.
Mrs. Ferrante?
With the motion.
Mr. Pacino?
With the motion.
Mr. Soto?
With the motion.
And I'm with motion. Number 8.
Item number 8 is 38-40 Naugatuck Avenue, CDD-2. Ken F. Lazinski, agent for Susan Patrick, owner. Vary section 5.5.1.2, expand a liquor store within 300 feet of a place of worship. Map 16, block 148, parcel 4.
Your name and address, please.
Good evening. My name is Ken Lasinski, and I'm here to speak on behalf of Antonio DeLise. I also have a letter here from the church, from Father Maurice Maroney and the trustees. I'd like to bring that up to you. We're here because we end up being, the rear property line is within 300 feet of the existing church. And we're also going to be moving over, and we'd like to expand into the existing space that was Howard's Variety. Antonio runs a very good business. I think it would be very good and complement the neighborhood. I've been involved with quite a few projects down there. The neighborhood currently looks the best it ever has. I think this is good.
So you're going to take up the corner up You're right, you're like the second one in from the corner of...
It is the
Broadway.
second building in.
And you're going to take the
and we'd
corner
actually-
up.
So we'd be moving actually further away.
Oh, further away, okay.
It's moving up towards the old firehouse.
Any questions on the board?
Hello. Yeah, that's not how I visualized it. So can I just ask that question again? So when I went down there, I saw a sign that said, "We're moving 3 doors down." So where that sign was, which way are you going? If I'm looking at it dead on,
That was the existing...
That's where you're moving to.
That was Howard's Variety. They moved to the corner. We're trying to move to that space.
Gotcha.
Tony is here, and he's trying to move further from Broadway.
They're expanding to the right. Okay. Okay. So like you said, you're actually moving further away, but still within the 300 feet.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Harris.
Do we have any other questions? Nope. You all set?
Yes.
Okay. Is there anybody here who'd like to speak in favor of this application?
Thank you.
Please come up and give your name and address and whatever comments you'd like to make.
I'm Joe Garbus, 60 Park Avenue. I live the next block over. I'm the Walnut Beach president, and we've been down there 23 years. As you all probably know by now, did a lot of revitalization. And I'm also chairman of the enhancement committee from the city, from the last mayor, Mayor Riccitelli. And I think we're doing a great job down there. I'm very proud. This particular project should be no problem at all because it's in the same space. And it's been there for years and years. And I know Father Maroney personally, and I agree with him because this community now has gone to way past what it was before. So it's a positive move to continue with that. And the proprietor there, he's been doing an excellent job, cleaned up right in front of the store, which is something new that we've been doing now with the revitalization. So I'm all for it. Thank you very much.
I want to mention that the letter that was given to me by the applicant from Father Maurice Maroney was in favor of the application and had no objections to the expansion of the Seaside Wine and Spirits establishment. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak in favor of this application? Please come forward and give your name and address.
How you doing? I'm Mike Amaratis. I own Alpha Pizza, 54 Naugatuck Ave. I'm Tony's neighbor. I approve of what he's going to do. I think it'll be good commercially. I mean, we built up the area, and in the summertime we get a lot of people coming down there. I think it'll be good commercially. You know, it'll be good for commercial purposes. And when we opened up in 1980, my father opened up Alpha Pizza. There used to be 3 package stores there, and one of them was almost directly across the street from the church. So I don't think his plans will have any effect on the parishioners. Thank you.
Is there anybody else who'd like to speak in favor of the application? Please come forward and give your name and address.
Hello. Good evening. I'm Tina Pritchard of 85 Broadway. I'm a fellow business owner down there, and Antonio runs a good business, and he's doing a great job, and he'd just be taking down a wall and expanding, and he's ready to grow, and if he's ready to grow, and I'd rather have him do it here, then we'd hate to lose him. So I'm in favor. Thank you.
Excuse me, could you repeat your name a little bit louder?
Tina Pritchard, 85 Broadway. Thank you.
Is there anybody else who'd like to speak in favor of this application? Is there anybody here who'd like to speak in opposition to the application? Seeing none, this hearing is closed. Thank you. I'd like to open up the discussion. I think it's a good thing you're doing. You're actually going farther away from the church. So, and since the church has no problem with it, I don't have any problem with it either. Any other comments? No other comments. I'd like to
Make a motion to approve.
somebody like to second that motion?
Second that.
Okay.
So reason for the approval is the fact that the applicant is moving actually further away, so there's already an existing nonconformity. They're not increasing the nonconformity, and we'll approve the application based on the survey presented before us tonight.
I'd like to have a voting. Mr. DuBois?
With the motion.
Ms. Ferrante?
With the motion.
Mr. Fasino?
With the motion.
Mr. Soto?
With the motion.
And I'm with motion.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Any old business? I see that there is none. I see that there is no new business as well. Any staff updates, Mr. Harris? No. And we have a motion for the acceptance of the minutes from last meeting. Yes, excuse me.
I just have one correction on the minutes. It said that I was originally opposed to the Tanglewood, but I had said I was originally in favor of it.
With that correction, we have a motion to accept the minutes with the correction noted.
I make a motion to approve based on incorporating that item.
Second.
Aye.
And that does it. Hearing is closed.
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.